So this is the Lulich Corner. I'm Jordan Lulich, and today I get to sit down with Scott Button from Cypress Bank Trust. Scott is a trust officer. And first, Scott, thank you for coming in, taking your time to sit down to share your knowledge about the world of being a trust officer. So we really appreciate you coming in.
Well, it's just great to be here and great to have this opportunity to share with the world a little bit about what we know about wills and trusts and estate planning.
I think it's a great topic, and people are definitely eager to learn more about it, is from what we found. So in the role of a trust officer, and maybe you could talk a little bit more about your background as well, can you educate people what is a trust officer?
Well, they're basically a trusted individual that's kind of in the business of helping people through tough times and tough situations. Because generally when we've been brought into the world of somebody, it's generally because either something really great has happened or something kind of bad has happened, or they're trying to prepare so that if something bad happened, it's not so bad,
Right.
So
they're trying to plan in advance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put together a plan
to make things easier for the people that they've left behind or that are coming in the future.
Whether it's being something bad happening or just being a little bit on the cautious side and doing some pre-planning. Where does your role at Cypress Bank Trust come into those different scenarios that you talked about?
Well, I mean, we at Cypress, we have a lot of services that we provide. We can just invest someone's assets for them. Hey, I've got these assets and we'd like you to invest them. Or, my dad died and left me this money in this trust and we want you to administer his wishes through his trust that he left behind for us.
Cypress Bank Trust has been in the Vero Beach market for a while. How would you define who Cypress Bank Trust is?
Well, we were started way back in 1996 in the West Palm Beach area as just a really small trust and investment management firm. And that company grew, and the next office they brought in was Vero. And like you say, we've been in the Vero Beach market for over 20 years. And then as time went on, we added offices. We have an office in Melbourne. We have an office in Jacksonville. We have an office in Winter Haven. We have an office in Winter Park. And we have an office in Naples. And all that's gone over the last, almost 30 years. And now we also have some exciting news. In 2021, we became a bank. So in addition to just being a trust company and an investment management firm, now we're a full service bank, and we do loans and HELOCs and car loans and small business loans.
Yeah.
And we have 4 offices, hoping to add a 5th this year or next year. Our current banking offices, we have an office in Jacksonville. We have an office in Melbourne. That's our flagship banking office. We have an office in Vero. And we have an office in Palm Beach on the island.
You guys offer a wide array of services. So when you're talking about your ideal client, who would you define as Cypress Bank Trust ideal client? Well,
it's a great question. And honestly, we don't like to think of them really as clients. We like to talk about setting up and preserving relationships that person can enjoy throughout their financial life. I mean, from the very beginning, hey, it might be something as simple with the client, like, hey, I need a checking or a savings account. Mm-hmm. And then as they move out through their life, hey, I needed to buy a car, so I need a car loan. And now I'm ready to buy a house and settle down, so we can help them. Cypress can help them with that car loan. And as they move further in their life, they need like a small business loan, or, hey, I want to buy a piece of investment property. So Cypress can help them with those 2 items as well. And then as they're moving further in their life, we want to make sure that they have an estate plan. And maybe we get them to a trusted attorney like Lulich Attorneys that can help them put together an estate plan that'll allow them to have a lot of peace of mind. And then as they move forward, we help them continue to invest those assets in a way that they're comfortable with, and then help them get ready to enjoy retirement and really enjoy retirement, not just live and exist, but they can really enjoy retirement and do whatever they do, and then rest in peace with the knowledge that once they're no longer with us, that Cypress is going to be there to execute their wishes from their will or their trust.
Yeah, so it's more than just one specific product or one specific service. It's really a partnership, it sounds like, from what you're saying.
Yep, and Cypress can take care of all those things. When we added the bank services, that really was a feather in the cap of the company, because now there's not a lot that we can't do to help a client. So
you touched a little bit on estate plan. So one of the things with an estate plan that I find that people get confused about is, they call us up or they look online and they're like, oh, I'm going to get a will done, or I'm going to do a power of attorney, right? And so one of the things that we're always constantly trying to educate clients on is there's a difference between documents and there's a difference between a plan. And I think that difference, that distinguishment is huge because, you can go online, you can call up an attorney and you can get a document done, but a document, is not a plan. And so a plan, in my opinion, and I'm curious on your take on it, but a plan encompasses everything. So you might have a will, you might have a trust, you might have a power of attorney, and all of your different documents, they're coinciding with each other. They're working together and they're planning things because, people might get a document done. They're like, oh, great, I got a trust. Well, did you think about your daughter or your son that may be on disability? Right?
Right.
And you leave your daughter who's on disability and inheritance, what just happened?
Exactly.
Kicked off of disability.
Right.
So that's a document. And the difference between planning is you're planning for all these different types of circumstances that you're putting together a plan for. And so from your perspective as a trust officer, what are some maybe commonly overlooked items of an estate plan that you see people kind of falling in the trap of overlooking?
Certainly. So, there's kind of the two big ones that a lot of people know. And the first one is, a will. I think just about everybody knows what a will is. And then, that a lot of people, use a trust either in conjunction with their will or instead of their will. But then there's a few other documents out there that some people don't know about. Like, hey, who's going to be the guardian for your children if you have children? And then if you're unable to conduct business, do you have a power of attorney that can step in and sign documents on your behalf? A trustee can do a lot of things, but they really can't sign documents on your behalf. So the power of attorney. Then you have all the healthcare documents like, end of life decisions. Who's going to make those for you? Who's going to make your critical decisions like, do we want this treatment or that treatment? Those healthcare surrogate, healthcare directive, those types of documents.
Yeah, that's interesting because we work with clients often and we're helping them form and establish companies or maybe restructure or reorganize a company. And every single time that we sit down with the client and we're having this type of conversation, the topic comes up that we bring up is what's your succession plan, right? Who's going to take over? Is it in a trust? Will you have to go through probate? Who's going to step in the event that you get into a car accident or some unlikely circumstance happens? And I tell you, Scott, that I think that from a business standpoint, that consideration is so often overlooked and people just don't give any thought to it. Or there was one gentleman who said yesterday that he's just never going to die.
I think he's in denial. What is it? Death and taxes? the two certain, right? Yeah, and the Panthers winning the Stanley Cup, right? Those are the two things that are certain.
That's right. Yeah. What do you think? So I think to your point, one mistake that clients make is they're not having a complete set of estate planning documents in their plan. So having a plan really encompasses your healthcare surrogate, your power of attorneys, your business power of attorneys, your succession plan for your company. So it encompasses everything. From your perspective, what are other mistakes that you see people make from a trust officer standpoint with their estate plans?
Well, there's a few. So I think like I call it the grand mistake or the big mistake is not having a will. I mean, because let's face it, there are a lot of people out there that don't have wills.
70% of people don't.
Yeah, and that's the most basic estate planning document. But I mean, for all of those of you that are out there that don't have wills, fear not, because if you die without a will, the government is going to step in and tell you exactly how your money's going to be distributed and things like that.
Yeah.
But if you just take that one step, that initial step, and have a will, things like who's going to take care of your children, how are your assets going to be distributed, I want some of this money to go to charity, things like that.
Huge.
Those huge decisions are already made. They're set out on paper, and your personal representative, would be the person who's in charge of executing your will, has basically a roadmap that's right in front of them as to what they want to do with all that. But the one thing that we see a lot with people that actually take the time to create a will is they set it and forget it. This isn't a Timex watch, people.
Yep.
Okay, so about every 5 years, you want to take that will and get it out, knock the dust off it, and double check because, oh my goodness, in 5 years, you would not believe the things that could happen in your life.
Yep.
You could get married. You could get divorced. Sorry, but it does happen.
Yeah.
You could have a child come into your life. You could lose a parent. You could lose a grandparent.
Sure.
All those things are important. Your financial situation could change. You could become a business owner. Okay. And those are just the things that are limited to you. And I didn't even begin to touch on the change that could happen. You could be a homeowner all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Now, let's think about the other side of that coin. You have elected a personal representative to take care of your will. Okay. Well, all the considerations that we talked about you might have to be considered with that personal representative. Are they still alive? Okay. Do they move across the world? And basically it would be logistically impossible.
Do they have the capacity to still do it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you named your dad, when you're 30 and you weren't married and you named your dad as the personal representative for your will, and now you're 85, and your 105-year-old dad is probably not going to be that great of an option for you to administer your will.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing. Just if you get it, it's a weapon. Use it, weaponize it, and just make sure it's updated.
Yeah.
Trusts are the same way. I mean, you people establish, hey, I went to Lulich Attorneys and they created this great trust for me.
Yeah.
Okay. But you wouldn't believe how many times that we get these people and they have, hey, I've got a trust, but they never fund the trust. And so now it's like you've got this wonderful gun that you can shoot with and there are no bullets in the gun.
Right.
And we're talking about something as simple as going to your bank and changing your bank account title from Scott Button to the revocable living trust of Scott Button. And then
you're hitting it on the head. Yeah. You're taking my words and using them as your own. I think that's the biggest mistake people make is, they take home this huge binder from a law office and then, they never do anything with it.
They think I'm good.
But a trust, folks, is nothing unless you actually fund the trust. And so part of what we do that distinguishes us from others is we're funding the trust when they're signing the trust. We're putting the property into the trust. We're putting their companies into the trust. And when they sign the estate planning documents at the signings, they're also signing these other funding documents to make sure that it's funded. Because, like you said, if you just have a trust and it's not funded, it's just a bunch of documents. Right. It does nothing. It's like a gun without a bullet. That's a great saying. But when going back to when you should update an estate plan, that's a question I get asked a lot. And I get asked that question specifically by people who are moving here from different states. And my philosophy is you should update your estate plan. You could do it every 5 years, but it's really whenever you have a major life change. And you hit it on the head. A birth in the family, moving across state lines, you get married. Those are all major life changes. Maybe one of the people that you had in your estate plan pass away. That's a major life change. So anytime that you have a major life change, it's a time to reevaluate your estate plan. Sit down, consider it, and consider any updates that may be necessary. So I share the same philosophy that you have, just in a little bit different of a way.
No, it's great because people create these trusts and like you say, they walk out of the attorney's office and and my dad walked out with like a 3-ring binder that was like this big. Yeah. People think that's it. Don't be an 11th floor window washer that steps back to take a look at his work. Yeah. Because that's just a recipe for disaster. If you have this is now a big asset that you have and a big weapon that you have in your hand. And if you don't take care of it, it's not going to work for you.
Yeah. And updating beneficiaries on account. That's simple. It's a 1 or 2 page document. It doesn't take much, whether it's for a life insurance policy or whether it's for a depository account. It doesn't take much to update beneficiaries, but people just don't get around to it.
The interesting thing when we're talking about wills and we're talking about trust and we seem to be focused a lot on death. But the cool thing about trusts is while they'll determine where things go, they can actually be used, to help you before you die. So, and a lot of people don't know this. So if you have a trust and let's say that you're in a coma for a month. I don't mean to be like doom and gloom, but
sure,
it can happen. And then trust officers are the king of worst case scenario because when we're evaluating documents, have you accounted for this? Have you accounted for this? But the trustee, while you're incapacitated, can step in, take care of your property. They can still keep investing your assets. They can pay bills on your behalf, and those things. And then if you should come out of your coma, and God hopes that you would, then you could resume your work, and the trustee can step aside until you pass.
So it's I agree with you, and we were discussing with a client recently, and we were talking about the client setting up multiple trusts. There's a revocable trust, revocable trust. We won't get too in depth about the differences on this session, but we talked about he was conflicted on who to appoint as trustee for when he passes away. He didn't know who was going to step in and really serve in that role. And he wanted it to be a family member, but he was conflicted, amongst his kids. So what we talked about was He was going to create an irrevocable trust. He was going to appoint his daughter to serve as trustee. And then there's accountability, there's mentorship, and there's teaching while he's still alive. Absolutely. He can teach her what the steps that are necessary to do to manage those assets in the trust. So it's not all after you pass away. Absolutely. It's also a technique and tool that you can use during your lifetime.
We have a neat situation. Like, I love little old lady stories. So I have this little old lady, and she's estranged from her kids, and she's never been married. And so she really has nobody taking care of her. She lives out in Texas. And so as she got older and older, we were a co-trustee with her on her Rev Trust. And so as she got older, she was having more and more trouble with her bank account. I can't get it to balance. And did I pay my Capital One or whatever? And so she was able to, with the trust, we could say, listen, if you don't want to pay those bills anymore, just send them to us and we'd be happy to pay for them. Yeah. And she maintained a few bills that she paid on her own. And then time went on and she didn't really have the capacity to pay those bills anymore. And it was stressing her out too much. So we took all of her bills and we started paying all of her bills. And now she's in a memory care unit and she can't dial out. We really can't talk to her. So we work in conjunction with her guardian and her power of attorney to make sure that she has the money that she needs to pay everything to make her live comfortably. That's so awesome. She was able to enjoy her mid-80s and early 90s without worry about paying bills and where her money is and everything. And then when she really needed us because she can't do it anymore, and she physically and mentally can't do it anymore, we're right in step with her, operating on her behalf in conjunction with her guardian and her power of attorney that she took the time to plan for, like we talked about before.
Yeah, when she so she could delegate those stressful things off to you guys. That's awesome. Scott, we're out of time. Before we finish up, how can people reach out to you to learn more information about Cypress Bank and Trust and what you guys do?
Well, I'm located in our Vero Beach office, which is just north of Beachland Road, right near Village Beach Market. Our phone number is 772-492-1919. You can reach out to myself. I'm the trust officer. We have portfolio managers there. You're more than welcome to stop in. And if you like, we can do a cursory review of your estate plan. We can look at your investments and we can make recommendations, and we can possibly recommend a great attorney that could help you walk down the path of generating your estate plan, like the fine folks here at Lulich Attorneys.
Scott, thank you for coming in for your time. We appreciate it. I'm Jordan Lulich, and this is the Lulich Corner. We'll see you next time.